What we do here is go back.
How's it going, everyone, and welcome to episode 87 of the Lost Media Podcast. Today we're talking about the early version of Bolt, American Dog. This was Chris Sanders' idea, and he was cancelled from making this movie. This movie was cancelled as well, which is obvious at this point. Bolt, if you remember it, I'm really surprised. I think a lot of people remember Bolt, but only saw it once when it came out. It made a lot of money when it came out, but the movie is probably one of the most forgettable Disney properties ever. There was nothing really genius or smart or funny in the writing. It was just a Bolt dog that was really, really cool. It was a Bolt dog. It was a dog that was a crime-fighting dog on TV, and he thought it was real life, and then he went out into the real world and had to do things properly and real world-like. And that was the plot for American Dog, but it was slightly changed for Bolt. In fact, you could argue that it was changed quite a bit. There aren't many similarities between these two movies, and Chris Sanders, who directed Lilo and Stitch, was assigned to do this movie, and it was his idea. He thought this was a really cool idea for an animated movie, but it wasn't Disney. This was kind of a Fearing and Loathing in Las Vegas animated version of that, which is really freaking cool when you think about it, and the concept is awesome, but the movie was kind of adult animation done in-house in Disney. And you think of the people that were working in Disney at the time, especially when it became Disney Animation Studios in 2005 and John Lasseter became head honcho. These people were trying to make movies that were marketable just for kids. Like, there was a lot of kiddie sort of tropes around that time of Disney. And except for Pixar, where they were making really groundbreaking, incredible films like Ratatouille and WALL-E, the Disney Animation Studios aspect of Disney at the time was just making kid-friendly, like wishy-washy sort of family movies. And this was nothing like what they were trying to go for. They were going for shit that could make heaps of money and was really successful with the company. And Chris Sanders was making something really unique. So the full story of this, I'm going to try and remember as much as I can. But Chris Sanders was working on this movie in the early 2000s up until 2005. John Lasseter takes over, and he's got a bunch of projects that are in development that he's got to see over, one of which is American Dog. And this was the one that was meant to be released first. So this was first cab off the rank to really look at how production was going. And Lasseter and his co-partner, I forgot the guy's name, sorry, they allegedly hated Lilo and Stitch. Well, they didn't hate it, but they weren't a fan of its style, because the bad guy in Lilo and Stitch was loosely based off a lot of head honchos at Disney, maybe Lasseter and maybe people that worked alongside Lasseter that were his friends. So they didn't like that Chris Sanders was an anti-establishment person, and they were very establishment, keep it safe, keep it marketable, and keep it money-making type people. Even though they made groundbreaking movies, they definitely were nothing like Sanders. Sanders was a creative. He was someone who made very different movies to what Disney was known for and broke the mold completely with that production company. So American Dog was at another level to Lilo and Stitch. Lilo and Stitch was very offbeat, I guess you could say, and this was offbeat. If you look at all the production work that was done for this, a lot of the stills, you can see that it is very stylistically different to anything Disney would do. And what Bolt became is probably the complete opposite to this movie. And I said it shared the similarity with the crime-fighting dog on TV. Well, American Dog's premise was a dog that was a crime-fighting dog on television. It was the star of Hollywood, and it was a big dude there, big dog in town, head dog in town. But I think that character knew that it was all fictitious. He just didn't know what the real world was like. That's the difference. And the dog in Bolt's just a dumb, stupid dog who thinks that his crime-fighting TV show is real life. So the characters were completely different. And the plot of American Dog is the dog being knocked out somehow, and he wakes up on a train. Now, this is the only animated material that was ever done for the film. There might have been more animation done for the film. I doubt it personally, but this was shown at SIGGRAPH 2005. This is the same convention that the Jimmy Neutron Johnny Quasar short was shown at 10 years earlier. And at SIGGRAPH, it was a very short and small display for American Dog. Maybe that was a sign of things to come, of this movie kind of being given its day in the sun, but hey, this isn't going to get made type thing. And the only footage of this that exists was filmed off a TV. It's going to play at some point during this video. By the way, the video that's playing behind me is done by a very small YouTuber, and it is very well made. So be sure to check that one out in the description. I'm embarrassed right now that I don't remember the name of the YouTuber, but please check it out. Like the video, subscribe. Dev, why am I doing? That's a throwback. What the fuck? Like the video, subscribe. Oh god, it's really, really good though. It's fantastic, much better than this video. I'm just trying to remember facts off the top of my head for a podcast format. I don't have notes in front of me, but this guy gave me a lot of information for this that really painted a nice picture. Now, I should say that this stuff happened years ago, and it was only really uncovered years after American Dog was cancelled. So nobody knows what it was like exactly with the production of this movie. But John Lasseter asked for so many changes, and Chris Sanders was like, you know what? Maybe it's not worth it. I want to make something that's my own vision and that is really creative and really genius. And maybe there's no point working under people that are really just going to try and stomp on this creative vision and what he was trying to do. So he decided to cease American Dog's production. Partially, probably. It was ceased by John Lasseter and he took over, but he left Disney and went to DreamWorks Animation. And that was the story of how American Dog ended. Really disappointing, because this movie was going to be pretty interesting. I think the aspect of it in the beginning, where he gets knocked out and wakes up on a train, and all of a sudden it's a journey around rural America to try and get back home to Vegas, or wait a minute. To Hollywood, where he was shooting his show. There is a scene of him in Vegas at a poker table. That's why I got confused there. And he's there's shots of him as a crime-fighting dog, but he's dressed in a tux that kind of looks like he's, in Vegas. So that's my confusion there. But the stills of him going on a cross-country trip around the US in a Fearing and Loathing in Las Vegas style, I would agree that that would be very offbeat for Disney. It would be cool to be animated. You want to see it made. But for what Disney was, it did seem very different, I guess you could say. And I kind of understand why they ceased this. What I don't understand is why when John Lasseter took over, he turned it into something really average, like just some crappy family movie. I don't know if you guys remember the Disney movie G-Force with the little hamsters. There's another one that's very forgotten from around the same time, but I think that was even more creative than Bolt. Bolt is just this boring movie about a dog that has all these, thinks it's got powers that it doesn't actually have, and then I think it gets the powers. Like it's just there's nothing really unique or cool about it. And they replaced the voice actor as John Travolta, who was going to be the voice actor for the main character, I think, in American Dog. And the guy from Spider-Man 3 that was the villain, I'm so sorry, I've forgotten the actor's name. He was going to voice an American Dog, and then they replaced him. And the girl voice actor for the girl character in the movie was replaced with Miley Cyrus, who had never acted a day in her life and was going to do the voice acting for the dog's owner, or the girl that finds the dog, and they both have to find their way back to Hollywood and find where to go. It's just a really average movie, Bolt, and it's a shame that such a cool, potentially innovative idea was turned into that movie. Now, when Chris Sanders was announced to be leaving Disney, and at the same time was announced to be replaced as the director of American Dog, everyone that was in the media or in online forums who were really excited about this movie got immediately very pissed, because in online forums, Chris Sanders kind of had a little bit of a cult following. Anyone who's an animation fan and who's a fan of like really, I guess, clever ideas that don't follow the status quo, and who's, a freelance animator, I guess you could say, they love stuff like Lilo and Stitch, and Chris Sanders' work in particular, and what he was going for with this grittier, kind of more adult type animation, but was allowed to get away with it at Disney because he proved that he could achieve results. Everyone online that was an animation fan loved this stuff, and when American Dog was announced, they were like, I don't know anything about this, and it hasn't started being made, but I just know it's going to be good because Chris Sanders. And it's like, okay, sure. That's fine. Um, and everyone was 100% sure because it was announced that, yes, this is going to be made and it's going to be a movie. And so when Disney announces that they've taken over and Chris is no longer the director and he's gone to DreamWorks, all hell broke loose, I guess you could say. And so for years, everyone wanted American Dog to have its justice. It didn't, obviously. And so the movie was never made. It was allegedly said that they were going to keep trying to make it even after Bolt was finished and released. I don't think that they made a proper attempt to do that, but you guys can correct me in the comments if you know a lot about this story. It is one of those really sad stories, once again, of a Disney movie that was a unique enough idea, but I can see why it was cancelled. It just was not Disney at all. And Lilo and Stitch, although that was a different idea, you could see like how it could fit into the mold of a Disney movie. You've got a human character, an alien, and there's some family themes, like family means holla. Family means no one gets left behind. I don't know what the fuck the quote is. Sorry, guys. But there's, stuff that's marketable to a lot of people and to kids. The characters look cool. And although the villain was, based on Disney execs, it still was good enough to make money for Disney. And American Dog has dog characters and has very little human characters. And there's a bunch of dogs that have got to try and find their way back home. And I'm going to talk about this a lot in future podcasts that are coming up very soon. Movies centered around non-human characters that were animated, that were kind of avant-garde and really basic, and were more like your 60s and 70s, 80s, 90s, low-budget cartoons like Tom and Jerry and stuff like that. Trying to turn those into a full-length featured Disney movie, and how many times that failed is really fascinating. I think there's only one or two that I'm going to talk about in particular in the upcoming podcast. But it's really interesting how a movie has such a dull concept. And you can tell with some of them that there's a dull concept. And with others, you can tell, hey, this is a cool concept, but it was just not Disney. And I don't know how many times I'm going to say it was not Disney, but that's the general gist of it. All I can really say is I struggle to figure out if this would have been good. Chris Sanders' Lilo and Stitch is like a really clever movie. I really liked it when I first saw it as a kid. And then when I rewatched it a few years ago with my friend, we thought it was hilarious. We really enjoyed it. But it is its own thing. I really do think that. And the fact that he went to the next level because he thought he could do it until Disney was taken over by John Lasseter, of course, is really cool. It just looks like it was just should have been done outside of Disney, man. Oh, it should have. It really should have. He went to DreamWorks and eventually made How to Train Your Dragon. So that, for a long time, was my favorite animated movie. It still almost is, but Kung Fu Panda, you can't go past that, man. That's legendary stuff. I talk about a lot of animated movies on this podcast, and so you don't have to ask me in the comments or any time in the future, what's your favorite animated movie? Kung Fu Panda is my favorite animated movie, the first one. Yeah. How to Train Your Dragon is very good, though. So Chris Sanders, the fact that he went on to do that after leaving Disney and going to DreamWorks is awesome. And he kind of explained in a 2008 interview that DreamWorks allows him to be more creative and to do ideas that are a bit off what you'd expect. And that's, I guess, been the problem with Disney for so many years. Everything's too Disney-fied, I guess you could say. And so everyone jumps on movies like Emperor's New Groove, Lilo and Stitch, and maybe WALL-E, maybe Ratatouille, I guess you could say, a bit of Ratatouille. And they jump on those and say, this is a unique, original idea that's not very Disney, or it doesn't seem Disney-fied. And that's why it's so good when Disney makes movies that aren't so Disney. So I think it will eventually die out, I hope. The animated section of Disney, it's too powerful now to die out. Disney as a whole, my God. That's a shame. That's a topic for another podcast, even though this is lost media, essentially. I should talk about the lost media of American Dog, if it will ever be released. There's been a lot of stills, obviously, that's been released of American Dog. A lot of production material, such as plot, script, stuff like that. I'm not sure about the script. You can correct me on that, guys. I don't know if that's been released. And that 15 seconds of animation. Is there more than just that loop? I'm going to go out on a limb and say no. No more was made. But if there was more, will it be released? Maybe. It is a Disney property, though. So Chris Sanders, to release this, he gets sued potentially by Disney. But Bolt, It's not like Shrek, where the original version of Shrek was released and it kind of shook that up a bit and made you think about Shrek. Oh man, this is weird seeing such a different version of Shrek, such a popular entity, such a popular film. Bolt's on like the lower scale of popular Disney movies, so low that it is just not popular at all. So I don't think. Oh God, that sounded awful. I think it's possible that more of American Dog's animated work, if there is any, will be released one day. Disney would have to sign off on it though, and I'm sure there's probably been a process already where Chris Sanders has been like, "Hey, can I release this as part of my sort of show reel?" And they've been like, "No, fuck you." But he did join Disney again, Chris Sanders, after John Lasseter was dropped for alleged sexual assault charges against him. So there you go. It goes full circle, doesn't it? All these stories, these people that get dogged for their great, oh, there's a freaking pun, for their great ideas, and they get removed and deleted from these corporations. They do eventually get their justice and return to the same corporation, and then they start making some cool ideas. So whenever will come out with Disney, this has gone way over time. There's a lot of details I spoke about to do with this podcast in the previous podcast. I won't go over those again. I will talk about them in a future podcast just because this one's gone for too long. But that was episode 87 of the Lost Media podcast. Let's just say for the short of it, there's a lot of stuff coming soon, and then I'll stop for a little while, only for like 7 or 10 days, and then I'll keep going again. I've just got to evaluate what I'm going to do with this channel in the future to make it reach as many people as possible, because that's the whole point of me starting this, to see if people want to watch Lost Media, and I think they do. So thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Smash that subscribe.